Hey, it is July the 1st. Just flipped over to July the 1st, which here in Canada is Canada Day, the day that we, as a country, are supposed to celebrate the founding of Canada in 1867. Except that that has been a thing this year, where a lot of Canada's very incredibly nasty history has suddenly been thrust unavoidably into the faces of a lot of Canadians who didn't particularly want to address, pay attention, or note it. And I mean, I think also used as something by other Canadians and the native folk who lived in these lands before and don't necessarily consider themselves Canadian even up until this day. Um, that used as a thing of like, hey, maybe we should actually pay attention to our history. What I'm referring to is the discovery in initially the discovery in Kamloops of hundreds of bodies of native children on the site of a one of the residential schools in Canada. It was decided as public policy, put forward by our founder, John A. Macdonald, and a lot of other founding fathers, that Native peoples, that their children should be taken away from them, and that they're basically their culture should be extinguished. They wouldn't be allowed to, you know, learn their language, have any contact with their family. Oftentimes in incredibly brutal conditions where they were ill-fed, where they were physically and sexually abused. Um, you know, really horrific experiences, which continued on well into the like 19. I think I talked about the last residential stuff ending like in ungodly like the 1990s. Um, and Not surprisingly, under the care, the loving care of these residential schools, oftentimes run by churches, because that was the cheapest way that the Canadian government could offload this responsibility, what they considered their responsibility to kill the Indian in all of these people. That a good hunk of there's a large number of these children never came home again. They died, and never. Well, oftentimes parents weren't particularly told anything about exactly what had happened to their children. They're now using sonar to discover the bodies, the burial sites, the mass graves of these children on sites like Kamloops and in other areas in Canada. This is becoming more and more prevalent, becoming more and more of a thing, which um, I have to say, kind of, someone who's just had, I don't have like a super deep history of Canadian history, but like it didn't take me too much reading into that myself to be fully aware of this and not really surprised. But I guess the fact that actual corpses have been found on the sites of these residential schools has actually kind of brought it home to people in Canada. Here in Victoria, BC, they have canceled they've canceled Canada Day this year. There won't be any celebrations. Um, and it's one of these things where you get varying reactions. The conservative leader says that he is the only federal leader that loves Canada, and that he thinks that we shouldn't be tearing down Canada, that it's a great country, and that all this, yes, bad things are done, but we should not celebrate the awesomeness of Canada and stuff like that. playing to a base that wants to downplay and basically ignore Canadian the really foul um, basis on which Canada was founded. Um, I I read a book by James Daschuk last year or the year before called "Clearing the Plains," which actually predates the founding of Canada in many ways, which was all about the really brutal um, genocidal tactics that were used by the Canadian government to clear the plains of what would become Canada of the native peoples, to force them through policies of starvation and to have to move onto reservations away from where the railway was going to be going through, the thing that gets celebrated in Canada as the great unifier. Popular historians bragging about how, the Americans, they had to have a war to unify their country, a civil war to unify their country, whereas Canada had a railway. But that is a railway that is indeed based on the decimation, starvation of native peoples. This is pre and this is pre the then them get being basically pummeled into submission through starvation and then taken into the care of the Canadian government, who then set up stuff like residential schools and reservations to control, subjugate, and try to exterminate culturally, and a lot of times just physically kill native peoples in Canada. I've heard people talk about how, it's this time period. It's a brutal time to actually have to want to teach, because it is so unremittingly grim, and we you know we as the white settler society come off really horrendous in this. Um, so it's one of these things, as I, for one, I'm kind of I don't think they're gonna cancel Canada Day forever. We're never gonna, like, it's not. There are things, I guess, about Canada that I do. I mean, obviously, I live here. I appreciate it. It's, you know, as a white dude, it's a wonderful place to be. It's not a not. It's a lot less wonderful if you are a Native person. You're a person of color. There are a lot of real issues in Canada that get shoved under the by under the cloak of patriotism, under the cloak of boosterism, um, shoves away a lot of the racism, the of a lot of the deep deep class um, issues um, that are a part of our society. And there's an unbearable Canadian smugness about, like, how we're such a great country, which is, it's unbearably smug, and it's unbearably, I find it unbearably hypocritical. You know, just like, fuck that, fuck that. It's like, how about we do take a year, maybe even a little bit more than that, to just actually educate ourselves about what our actual history is, and to have a bit more of a kind of a sober idea of, like, what we could actually do to kind of address stuff that is continuing to go on. Native people in Canada are still have shitty healthcare, shitty shitty living conditions on reservations, shitty health, education outcomes. They're you know and we have the federal government who is still consistently fighting against any advances that Native peoples want to make. We still have the Indian Act in this fucking country, and it's one of these things of our beloved media friendly prime minister got elected on a platform of, oh, let's do reconciliation, and has done shit all about that ever since. He makes smiles and stuff like that, and has been sorely lacking in actually doing anything. I mean, I kind of rail against kind of the right, our right wing asshole conservative, but Justin Trudeau is worse in that he is the epitome of Canadian. Oh, I love Native people. Oh, I want to help them, and does nothing. Um, you know, just makes gestures, empty gestures, and then does nothing, and has a government that continues to fight and to, um, uh, yeah. See, this is why I'm not going to actually release this as an actual public video, because I just sound as self-righteously assholish as the rest of the people. This is more me talking about how I feel about it. I mean, I feel pretty shitty a lot of ways of being a Canadian, of being a white settler Canadian at this time in history in Canada. Um, yeah, and that, but it's who I am, and I mean, all I can cling to in myself is I'm not surprised they found all these dead bodies. I'm not surprised about the really fucking dark history that um, that Canada as a nation state that I benefit from um, under has. Um, and, you know, I don't know. I don't know. It's, yeah, it's just, it's the rot. Um, and I mean, I guess you continue on with your life. You continue to try and do good things, but you kind of have to realize you're living on this. We're all living on the bodies of these dead children. They're underneath the ground everywhere in Canada, um, which, you know, beautiful, but yeah, fertilized by the bodies of dead Native children. It's it's what do we where do we go from here? I don't know. And I'm probably not the guy to ask. Yeah, yeah. Canada Day. All right. More videos later.